Hello everyone, welcome to the course in Trafficking in Cultural Property. It's great to have you here again and I hope you will enjoy learning more about our topic. My name is Virág, I'm your course instructor and mentor, and this is our third lecture. So here are the recap questions. Pause the video and try to answer these questions regarding our last week's topic. Don't forget that this is your preparation for the final quiz. So today's topic is the cultural heritage crime cases, where we will learn more about the reasons behind owning antiquities, and I would like to show you an example, a special case study as well. You already heard in the last lecture how hard is it to know whether an artifact is coming from illegal excavations or not. You also heard that usually illegally excavated artifacts are related to criminals and terrorists. So why do people still buy antiquities? I think it's important to understand why do corporations, investors, and also criminals invest in antiquities. First, let's talk about the history of antiquities investments. Now, there is something mysterious and fascinating about the past, which has been attracting people from the beginning of human history. Antiquities possess cultural but also economic and nominal value, which makes it possible for them to become collectibles as tangible assets. This mixed value has made antiquities popular among collectors and investors throughout the history of mankind. Nevertheless, in ancient times, collections were more likely to be related to wars and plundering the enemy's heritage. It continued throughout our history and led to ethically questionable habits of the colonizers in the 17th-19th century, collecting artifacts from the colonies. These collections are still displayed in the most renowned museums of our times. The history of modern antiquities investments started with the British Rail Pension Fund in the 1970s. Due to inflation, the fund invested in antiquities, expecting that they would keep their value. The last item from the original collection was sold in 2003, and the artifacts did not just keep their value, but made 4% points per annum above inflation. Since then, antiquities investments have become a hot topic among investors. Now, based on the history of collecting artifacts, we can observe 6 major reasons why antiquities are attractive, whether it's a legal or illegal form of investment. First of all, each piece is unique, which reflects the 21st century collector attitude. Their uniqueness also holds the possibility that they will be a lot more valuable in time as the researchers learn more about the history of the artifact. The collector's taste in art is changing as well. A good example is the Kukla idols, which people found unattractive in the 19th century, but which are one of the most fashionable investments these days, as the aesthetics have changed with contemporary art. Second is that tangible assets tend to keep and steadily grow their value over time. Auction houses usually advertise antiquities investments by emphasizing that there's only a limited number of objects on the market because everything new coming out of the ground is going to museums. Nevertheless, this assumption is not entirely true. We know that the number of artifacts on the market is growing rather than shrinking. This assumption is one of the reasons why it is possible and profitable for the black market to loot archaeological sites and museums, which at the end leads to a growing supply. Third is that antiquities are emotional investments, which means that, especially for private investors, the items do not only hold economic but cultural and emotional value as well. Some collectors call it a collector's gene, which makes them want to own a piece of history. Collectors sometimes feel that they saved that piece of cultural heritage. Others collect for aesthetical value and the beauty of these objects. The psychological aspect of the investment process plays a key role as well. Most antiquities are sold in auction houses, and auctions have a very specific atmosphere. Psychological research indicates that auctions have a very similar effect on the human brain as gambling. Auction fever, the competition which drives the adrenaline up. Another aspect which are usually mentioned is that especially the Greek, Roman and Egyptian artifacts are part of the so-called Western heritage, and it's like owning a piece of that history. Some collectors find it very attractive that every piece in their homes has a story. And last but not least, antiquities provide a great opportunity for money launderers. This is probably the most important aspect for criminals. The price of objects easily manipulated, and until the beginning of 2020, investors could even stay anonymous when buying antiquities through auction houses. Obviously, it is possible to buy antiquities legally, so I'm not saying that everybody is a criminal who buys antiquities. These are just the underlying motivations for buying antiquities legally or illegally. Now, I would like to share a case with you where the intention was to buy antiquities legally, but it turned out to be a shady business. So what happened? An especially instructive case related to Iraqi artifacts is the Hobby Lobby case. Hobby Lobby Stores is a well-known craft and hobby supplies trader based in Oklahoma, US. The company started collecting different types of cultural property in 2008 and consulted with experts on cultural property law regularly. Hobby Lobby purchased artifacts from Iraq through the United Arab Emirates in 2010. For one specific cuneiform tablet, they paid 1.6 million US dollar, despite the numerous warnings from professionals and lawyers that the object did not have clear provenance. Nevertheless, the auction house sold the tablet to Hobby Lobby through a private auction, meaning that the trade happened behind closed doors. Consequences? Well, among others, this tablet turned out to be stolen and illegally smuggled out of Iraq, most probably during the First Gulf War. Hobby Lobby had to bear the consequences and pay a fine of 3 million US dollar, as well as returning the object. Later, the founders of Hobby Lobby returned more objects to Iraq and Egypt voluntarily. But the story is not over yet. In May 2020, founders of Hobby Lobby decided to sue the auction house, claiming that the auction house did not perform sufficient due diligence. Hobby Lobby purchased items legally. The artifacts were presented with papers from the auction house. However, lawyers and experts warned Hobby Lobby that the artifacts do not have clear provenance, and as we saw, it became a huge problem. Hypothetically, Hobby Lobby did not want to buy looted artifacts, but because of the insufficient due diligence and negligence, they have to bear not just the financial consequences, but also the loss of reputation as corporation. As an immediate action, they gave back the artifacts to Iraq and many others to Egypt, but it will take them a long time to build back their reputation. On one hand, Hobby Lobby seemingly regretted its act by giving back the artifacts. On the other hand, they recently sued the auction house, blaming them for insufficient information that was provided during the trade. We shall see how the jury decides on the situation, but Hobby Lobby has taken steps to build back their reputation, and seemingly they regret the whole trade. But how did it affect society? The purchased artifacts were most likely illegally excavated or looted from Iraq. As it was analyzed before, illegal, looted and smuggled artifacts are usually called blood antiquities because the trading of these artifacts is attached to death caused by the different terrorist groups and violations around the smuggling process. Society was harmed profoundly. Our common cultural heritage and archaeology also suffered irreversible damage. And how does it affect Hobby Lobby? We can assume that Hobby Lobby probably did not know that the artifacts were looted. However, they bought the artifacts against all warning. Their due diligence was not sufficient and they chose intentionally to buy these artifacts. The trading was conducted sometimes through private auctions as the request of Hobby Lobby in cooperation with the auction house. Hobby Lobby found itself in situational conflict as it seemed like a good investment to buy these artifacts, although experts and lawyers warned them that it's risky regarding the unknown provenance of the objects. Hobby Lobby knew about the risky elements of the trade and the fact that these artifacts could have been attached to illegal excavations, but nevertheless they bought them intentionally. The fact that Hobby Lobby bought these artifacts was not what was expected from this company. They also acted against the law. That's the reason for the fine as well. The rules of the game are the Iraqi law, the US law, and the 1970 convention. We will talk about these in the next lecture in more details. But being compliant with laws, regulations, as well as respecting moral rules is a form of respecting others and ourselves. The Hobby Lobby case is also an example of how the antiquities market works and how easy it is to lose money and reputation because of these types of investments. Insufficient due diligence and lacking provenance can cause huge damage. And that is not just harmful for the social cooperation, but makes it hard for Hobby Lobby to maintain the cooperation for mutual betterment in the future, which at the end can be immensely harmful to their business. It is important not just for society, but also for investors to pay more attention to the provenance of the purchased artifacts. Building trust in antiquities investments by avoiding artifacts with uncertain provenance will prevent reputation loss. These cases have desired consequences for the investors, the local communities, the plundered museums, and cultural heritage in general. As consumers, we have the power to force companies, institutions, and other investors to act responsibly and conduct sufficient due diligence. Thank you for taking part in this very important process by studying about the issue, and I hope to see you next week as well.